Hey, it's Don the Art Professor. Today we're going to make a miniature, a dollhouse miniature from start to finish, just out of household items, including popsicle sticks and things along that line. We're going to recreate this RCA Victrola from about 1920. This is a British version that was imported back over to this country. It's a standard model that you can find, not something elaborate, but you just won't find dollhouse miniatures. So when you can't find them, I create them. Okay, to start with, I use a lid from just some plastic container, and I'm going to cut it down and form it into a circle. You can use a compass or something if you'd like, and we're just going to glue this together when we're ready. I'm going to score some lines in it as well to make the separation so it looks like the horn or the speaker of the Victrola. I'm just scratching in with a pottery tool, a rounded pottery nub, the lines. And I'll go over them a few times to make sure that it's going to be deep enough. Check it out to make sure. You can see the lines in there. That's the paneling I want to do for the horn. And it's just literally this piece of plastic. This is the second piece. We're going to do a second piece, which I've just used a section of the exact same size of plastic circle. And this is going to be the bottom half of the main part of the horn. I'm just going to double check to make sure it fits on there, as it looks like it does. Once we're sure of the fitting, I will then go ahead and glue it down. I use Gorilla Glue, as you can see, for most of it. Dries really quickly. You can see what I've done. I taped it together to make sure it wouldn't fall apart. Just testing out to make sure it does all fit. Now here's the main horn already glued. This is the main part of the speaker horn, as they are called. Now here's some pieces. Now I've just cut some mat board to make the main top and bottom of it, and I've cut several pieces that are a little smaller than each other so that I can stack them up and it'll look like fancy wood. It pretty much matches the design. This is a octagonal. The rest of the sides of it I'm actually going to cut from popsicle sticks. Now I've got a little tiny miter box. I have more tools and stuff. I just grabbed it real quick. This just takes a second. And we're going to chop these all down into matching pieces to make the octagonal panel sides of the actual main box of the player. Now we're going to glue this together, part of it. We're going to glue the top and the bottom. Now the three stacked pieces I'm doing here, this is the bottom of the player. We're just going to use some 3-to-1 glue. You can pretty much use anything that dries quickly and won't warp the cardboard. The cardboard, or the stock that I'm using here, I just cut with regular scissors. Even though it's pretty thick, it still cuts fine with decent shears, like kitchen shears is what I usually use. I'm just going to stack the three pieces, and then we'll glue the top. Has two pieces together now as well. Now the rest of the horn, I use this pipette. We're going to cut it down and use it. It's very flexible. Once you cut off the end, it makes a perfect end for the rest of the horn. We're going to bend it and do a little more cutting and some gluing to it, but overall that's the gist of it. As you can see, it fits perfectly in here. Now we're going to cut a V divot out of the side of this, and that way we can instantly fold it and it'll stick to itself. It won't leave an opening or anything else. Literally, it's just a little V divot out of it, and then it'll fold readily. There you can see it folds really easily. Slide it back in to make sure everything fits properly. Never glue until you make sure everything is properly fitted. Now we're gluing the final stages right here. I put glue on every single seam just to make sure it fits well. The glue actually ends up, after it's painted, looking like the weld it would normally have anyway. Now for the record platter, I've just cut out 2 identical shaped circles. I've used a circle template, and one of them I've cut out the middle section. And I can just go ahead and poke a hole to make sure I've got the middle of everything. This is going to be the platter where the spindle is and where you're going to see a red felt base. I've just taken a drill bit and we've went ahead and screwed a hole into it much bigger, just big enough to fit a spindle that I've picked out for this. I'm going to sand it all up here to make sure everything's smooth. Then we're just going to glue the pieces together. Again, this is the platter that holds the record. The record will sit on top of this piece right here. Now we're going to make a couple feet for this. We're just going to take some broken chopsticks, some wooden chopsticks, and I'm going to cut them down, and we're going to make 8 little tiny feet out of them here. They work just perfectly fine for this type of thing. It's all wood. We're going to yank the hot glue gun out. We're going to be doing some gluing here in just a few moments. We'll put the sides together, my little tiny popsicle stick wooden sides. We're just going to glue them together with the hot glue. Now I use hot glue because it grabs really quickly, and it's probably the best bet for something like this. Each one has to stay in position till I get the next piece in, and then I can glue the seams between the 2 panels together. So that's the gist on this, and that's why I'm using a hot glue gun. This is about the only part that I use the hot glue gun for, again, because it's very, very quick with gluing everything together. Now I'm going to get some of those chopstick pieces down again, and we're going to use them to do the little pillar sides that are on the side of the unit here, as you can see. I'm just going to cut 8 of these to match where the seams are, and that'll help reinforce and support this as well. So we're going to have to cut these and get the little miter box out again. You can see we're just going to chop these down really quickly here, and we're going to glue them as we do it. Make sure everything's lined up, of course. And you want to make sure they're all the same size also, otherwise it's not going to fit. The lid won't fit flush with everything here. You can see we're getting them together right now. Just glue them on as we get them. Now we're just putting the last couple touches on it, as you can see, and we'll move on to the next part. So now for the handles, I actually made little metal handles. They're actually from hammered out flattened nails. They work perfectly. You can cut and grind these down, bend them any way you want. And that is the spindle. It's another part of a nail as well. And bend these up then with a couple pair of needle nose pliers to get them into any shape that we want. These work perfectly. I always try to use actual pieces of metal for all of these sorts of things. Again, there's 2 levers. There's an action lever and then a speed lever as well. And plus you had the hand crank. The hand crank I make out of a piece of brass wire also, which you'll see in just a few moments. There you can see it's bent. It'll have to be sanded and cleaned up, but that is an official lever there for action. It'll make the spindle spin. Now I use surface primer. This is a Japanese based product. I'm going to prime everything right now to make sure everything has a good coat. The final 2 coats of paint need to be able to stick, so I've sanded everything, and we're just going to paint everything on up here. The horn itself, though, I actually use a can of spray paint, and then we're going to put a wash to kind of age it when we're done. Spray paint works the best on the plastic pieces because it sticks to pretty much anything. Here's the hand crank. As I said, it's just a piece of brass, and I've bent it with some needle nose pliers. Now we're going to go back in and just double check the fit. As you see, here's the horn. It's come along fairly well. We'll still do some more to the horn. You got to check everything out to make sure it all fits properly. Now we're just going to put the final coat on here. This is like a dirty metallic look. It kind of resembles the original coloring that's on the turntable platter itself. So we're just going to get a nice good coat on here. Now we got to size up and put a hole in the side so we can mount this in there. The handle part, the edge piece you see there, is just another piece of the chopstick that I've cut down and drilled a hole in so I can put the handle in it too. So that's all glued together as well. Now I'm going to make a little box on the inside also, or a little piece of cardboard, and we're going to end up bending this around so this cannot pull out. So the handle will be permanently mounted in there. Once it's all glued up tight, it'll be held in there very firmly. We're going to bend the inside piece of that brass section. Now we're just going to try it all out here. Now I've also cut a piece using that circle template again, a piece of red felt that's going to be on the top of the platter, as you can see there. So the platter itself is almost done at this point. I've got the spindle made and the whole works. We're just going to double check to make sure everything fits here. You can see I've already glued in the rest of the knob just to make sure, at least tempted it out. I'm just going to fit everything to make sure. Now to smooth out some of the horn, the pipette that I used, all you got to do is heat it up just a little bit with a lighter, and you can smooth that on out and seal any seams that are in there. It works perfectly for this. Now I've placed the wire inside the horn stem assembly here, and that helps me to position it any way I want. I add glue obviously inside as well to keep everything together. Now we're just fitting everything to make sure size and everything else looks correct. Now we're just going to glue on the feet. Again, I've made 8 of them, so 2 for each basic side of this, and we're just going to put them out in a pattern pretty much like the actual Victrola I have. So we're just going to pop those on in there. Now we're just going to put the first coat of actual paint. I've pretty much primed everything that really needs to be, and we're just going to come in and put this color on here. It's like an ochre. Now, I do 2 different coats on here so the color matches better. Just make sure you get everything covered with this as well. Again, all the pieces will be painted with this initial color after they've been already primed, and then we're going to come back in with another coat as well. Now here's the horn. Again, I use a spray paint. It's the easiest way to get it, and then I just run a wash over it to age it. That's all it was gold spray paint. Now here's the final coat of regular paint. This gives it like a streaked mahogany look, kind of like it did originally. Now we'll put a wash over that as well at the very end. Now we're just dry fitting it now that it's all together again. So here's a close-up. You can see the pieces after we've painted them, and we've run a wash over them. Kind of gives it that aged, dingy look like the real piece does. Just going to double check on the fitting. So here's the last piece. This is the support arm that holds up the horn, the speaker, as you can see. Now it's a piece of wood, and I've mounted and glued plastic to both sides to strengthen it. This is going to hold the entire horn by itself. You can see here we've spray painted it with silver spray this time instead of the gold like the horn. It'll get washed and have a little bit of paint added to it to make it look dingy and dark like the rest of the unit. This one takes a little bit of time to make sure it fits properly. It's going to be mounted to the horn with the strap of painted silver plastic, as you can see. Now we're just going to double check. And the last part of this is just a matter of using super glue to glue the horn down, as you can see. And here it goes. And there you go. There is the finished example. Looks much better in real life, but as you can see, it's a pretty much nearly identical representation of the original.